Today, we're talking about your culture is your DNA. And so it's kind of a really important time right now where we have been disrupted quite a lot in our companies or even teams around what is that culture and how is it evolving since since we've been through COVID, we're now going to recession, we've had war, we've had multiple other things happening, which is kind of disrupting that space of where we are at and how do we actually manage the culture along the way. So it's quite a challenging space. And if anyone who thinks they've got their culture set, they've got something coming because it's an evolving space. And the great thing about culture is that you have some control over it, but it's always going to be evolving because human beings are not always consistent. And so we need to have our finger on the pulse. The beautiful thing is we've got some people on here that are involved in kind of the human resources space. We have people that might be more in executives. We have others that are employees. And you all have a role. You all have a role in regards to the culture of an organization. Now, I want you to imagine that you're walking into your office or you're joining your team's conference call and you notice different things happening. You notice that some people have their cameras switched off if you're online. Some have their cameras on, but they look like they're busy doing other work. You have some that look happy and smiling, but others that look a little sad. You've got some that are joining late and those that have come in early. And there's no consistency about it. Is this representative of some of the spaces you've been into recently? Well, that's some of the culture that we are seeing because culture is a lot about behaviors. And behaviors has everything to do when it comes to what is the actual culture of an organization. Now, in New Zealand, we have a beautiful word called whakapapa, and some of you may have heard me speak about this before, which means genealogy. It's that interwoven DNA from our ancestors, all the interactions we have with other people, our life events to the present, and then into the future for generations that we'll never meet. And when it comes to your company culture, that means that you can't forget about the past. It is always going to be tied into your culture at some point. And so it's important to acknowledge that and understand what is important to keep from a historical perspective, but then also take into consideration how the world is evolving, how your company is evolving, who the people are in there, and what do they need to bring out their best and to deliver amazing services and products to your clients and customers. It's a fascinating world and it's fun. So let's dive on in here a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So we're going to look at three components today. And these three components, you've probably heard of two of them, but the third one you may not have. So let's take a look at what's coming up in today's session. So we're going to be looking at DNA, and I want you to think about culture from a DNA perspective. And it's not just one person or one company's DNA, it is everyone that is interacting with that company, employers, stakeholders, customers, clients, etc. So your first one is your vision, and your second one is your DNA, and the third one is culture. So you first need to have vision before you can create what is the DNA of that organization, which then leads to your culture. So what are these three things? The first part, your vision, is your destination. It is kind of that North Star, where you're heading, what is the ultimate vision of the company or team you're working for. The second one here I'm going to add in is a mission before we get to DNA. And with mission, that is how you get there. So vision is the destination. The mission explains how you get there. And the DNA is the way we work. And you may have heard some people, when you walk into an organization, go, that's how we do things around here. And that's realistically what culture is. It is how things happen. It is the behaviors. It's the attitudes. It's what you allow to happen or not allowed to happen. So it's those boundaries that are put in place. It is that collective DNA of the way that we behave as an organization. And so I want you to think in this case, we're going to look at just we're going to focus a little bit on vision and mission before we go into our DNA. And to get clarity of vision, there's a couple of key components that we need to look at to actually get clarity of our vision. The first one is to dream big. The vision is something that is in the future. It is something that is not going to happen tomorrow. It is something that needs to be big. So we need to dream big first. And this is super important if we want to be able to create, to really look at our DNA and be able to strive for something. Our team won't be motivated if it's something really easy and simple that we can achieve in the next month. So we need something that is longer term to be able to make sure that we are striving for a culture and a DNA that everyone enjoys working for. The second one here is we need a question. We need to think of a question around why are we doing what we do? And that question could be around the fact of what would a world look like if we could? What would a world look like if we could? And so when I looked at, say, Speakers Institute Corporate from a vision perspective, our question was, what would a world of corporate training look like if we created a world-class learning experience? That was our question. If you work in a hotel, for instance, I'm just going to pause that for a second. If you work in a hotel, it could be something like, what if we could create a luxurious experience where people met other people during their travels? That could be the question. Then from there, you can create that vision. The next one here is to then look at doing a brainstorm. So to brainstorm, get people involved from all aspects of the organization or the team. Brainstorm down what are the different things that you see that could be a great vision for the company. Get people to brainstorming and take all the quirky and really unique different ideas and perspectives that people have. Then from there, you can start to collect keywords. What are the keywords that are coming up? And then the fifth one is to create a catchable phrase that is easy to remember. And I want you to think about that, a catchable phrase that is easy to remember. Why? Because most vision and mission statements collect us sitting up on the shelf and no one can actually explain it. I want you to write in the chat right now if you know what your company vision is. Can you put that in the chat right now? Can anyone actually write what their company vision is? The world's best travel company. Thanks, Chloe. Very good. All right, so I'm going to pop in here really quickly. What is the Speakers Institute corporate one? Okay, the global leader in corporate training is our one. So we've got inspiring conscious leadership. So sure, thank you. So good, we got a couple in here. A vibrant, safe and livable city, accessible to all. Thanks, Rob. Really, really good. Let's have a look at a couple of different vision statements. And I'm going to pick a couple of these apart just to show you how they can be memorable and how they may not be as well. So let's have a look at a couple of good ones first that I quite like. And then we can even dissect it to make it even easier to catch. Okay, so the first one here is Nike. To do everything possible to expand human potential. Okay, I like that. It's very visionary. What they've got to do everything possible to expand human potential. That's visionary. That's aspirational. That's out in the future. But their mission, which is how they're going to do it, is to bring inspiration, innovation to every athlete in the world. So to do everything possible, they need to bring inspiration and innovation. So the mission is doing it. I really like Nike's here. It's a great one. Can anyone pop into the chat right now what the slogan of Nike is? It's probably the most catchable slogan in the world, quite easily memorable. What is the slogan of Nike? Just do it. Okay, excellent. Super easy to catch. Do you know the slogan of your organization? Good question. Ashley, pop that in the chat while I go on to the next one. Do you know the slogan? Okay, Google here, to provide access to the world's information in one click. They could shorten this. I think it's good, but it might just be access the world's information in one click, or one click to access the world's information. Something that's a little bit easier for everyone to remember, because you want them to repeat it. You want them to remember anytime. But their mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and usable. Okay, so they're talking now about organizing that information and making it accessible and useful. So that's how they're going to do it. It's very good. I like where Google's going, but they could shorten it slightly. Speakers Institute Corporate, the global leader in corporate training, mission to inspire great leaders. And our tagline is inspiring great leaders. So it's super easy for our team to remember exactly what our mission is, and that is inspiring great leaders. So super, super easy. All right, so in the chat there right now, I want you just to pop in the chat, do you think your vision of your company is big enough? Is your company's vision big enough? Yes, Rob. Okay, I love it. It's a good question. Sasha, always expanding. And if we go back to your one there earlier on, it was inspiring conscious leadership. Okay. So that there is to me, that's a little bit more like it could be more of a slogan, or even more of a mission, how you're going to do it. But what is that end kind of big destination you want to get to? So there might be something to consider. It needs to be a little bit more concrete in what it looks like. And we need to be able to visualize what that looks like. So like the global leader in corporate training is easy for someone to actually visualize what that might be. For Rob's, a vibrant, safe and livable city, accessible to all. That's it. That's something I can visualize what that may look like. I may not be specifics, but I can visualize what that's going to look like. Okay. And actually, sometimes we even see some companies look at just a purpose. And EY are very good at this. They don't have a vision or mission. They just have a purpose, which is building a better working world. So that's their kind of North Star, building a better working world. But it's super clear. I can understand very fast what that's going to look like. And for them, they're constantly working on it. And I'm sure EY would have found that really useful going through COVID and as we reimagine what workforce culture would look like. But now that we've got our vision, we know where we're going, we need to kind of look at what is that DNA, or what is the culture going to look like? So why do I talk about DNA? Why am I not talking about values? All right, a bit of psychology here. Subconsciously, what most people will do when they hear the word value is go, I value this, I value that. They go to their own things they value in life. So everyone has their own set of values that is shaped by the environments they may have been in. So it's actually quite difficult for them to come in and you go, here's our values. Well, no, they're not. They're not mine. They're a company's. I don't necessarily value that. What about the things I value in life? So they look at the word value and subconsciously will put meaning to it that may not actually be the meaning of what values in a corporate world actually mean. All right. Can anyone pop into the chat right now? What do you think values mean in a corporate world? What is a value? What does a value do? Why do we have them? Okay, so inspires employees. I think that was for that one. Yep, but what are actual values? What are they supposed? They inspire employees. What else are they supposed to do? It's interesting. So it's hard for a lot of people to actually explain what they are. So I'm going to take you through what that kind of what it's supposed to mean in a way, and then I'm going to get you to think about the DNA, because DNA, as we spoke about before, is that interwoven connection of different people's DNA, align people's objectives. Okay, good. Chloe's on the finger on the pulse today. I love it. She's and her team are enjoying in the background, just watching her do all the work for them. Which is good. Nice to see you in the office together, ladies, as well. Okay, all right. So let's have a look here at what. So as I mentioned before, your DNA is your culture. Okay, so what does that actually mean? When we look at DNA, and people may have looked at this from a values, but as I said, values don't always quite work, because sometimes it's just a word which has no meaning. Sometimes it's a word with meaning. And then there's a really good way values are done. But I want you to think of it as DNA. So virtues. Why do I say virtues rather than values? Values is what do I value now? Virtue is what are we seeking? What are we trying to get in the future? So if we talk about the virtues of an organization, that is what we are aspiring to, versus the values is more of the now, or what have we had before. So virtues are what we're aspiring to. So I like to use the word virtues rather than values, because as I said, the word values, people go back to what do they value in life. Behaviors. So we've talked about aligning people's objectives, but also the behaviors, how we do things, our attitudes, our beliefs as an organization, and the way we do our work. What is our work approach? So your DNA should encapsulate the virtues, behaviors, attitudes, belief, and approach. The way you approach work should be encapsulated in your DNA. So the DNA, I want you to think about now is going beyond one word. And the reason I want you to go beyond one word is I want it to explain something. What does your DNA explain in regards to a behavior, an attitude, or a belief, or the way your organization works? So I'm going to show, to begin with, some really good examples of what this means. Okay, and I want you to kind of watch these and tell me, you can pop into the chat, we may even open mic if we get time. What are you noticing when you see these? So let's have a look at Amazon first. So here's just a couple of Amazon's values that I chose. Event and simplify. Learn and be curious. Bias for action. Okay, does anyone want to unmute and share? I'll leave that on so you can see it. Does anyone want to unmute and share? What are you noticing about what those three values of Amazon? Or you can pop in the chat if you're... What comes to mind when you first see them? They are all call to action. Great, Rob. They are. They're calls to action. What else do you notice about the characteristics of those values? Are they easy to remember? Yep, we've got some head nods, we've got some finger waving, we've got a couple of different things. All right, they're broad but easily visualized. Okay, good. And easy to recall. Okay, thanks, Rob. Let's have a look at the next ones. We'll keep picking up what we see here. Google. Great isn't good enough. Fast is better than slow. It's best to do one thing really well. Okay, what are we noticing here? Anything different?
Hi, Craig.
Hi. Who am I speaking to here? Who's talking?
My name's Candy. I work at Peel One.
Hi, Candy. Lovely to hear from you.
These feel like super ambitious.
Super ambitious?
And a little bit pretentious.
Okay. So explain a little bit more. Why do you feel they feel super ambitious?
It kind of sounds like they're being really hard on themselves. Like they're doing a good job, but great isn't good enough, apparently.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So, and I can understand that from a certain perspective. So if I looked at this, it's very performance driven. So I can see their identity of Google quite quickly. All right, great isn't good enough. So that means they're wanting to go to another level. But it also means they don't want to settle for mediocrity or also complacency, because complacency kills in organizations. If we keep doing the same thing all the time, it could lead to complacency. Okay, so they're always looking to improve. So I see that fast is better than slow. So for them, they're potentially looking at, we don't need to perfect it, but we need to be trying to get it out quickly, learn from it, and then create again. So they've got a really fast feedback loop, is what I can sense from this. And it's best to do one thing really well. So for them, it's like, let's focus. I want you to focus on something rather than trying to do multiple things. So that's what I can feel from there. But I can also sense maybe they're being a little bit hard on themselves with the first one. Great isn't good enough. However, I'm sure Google wouldn't have got to where it has if it hadn't kept pushing the boundaries, because in technology, people are chasing you all the time. Everyone's trying to outdo each other. So in that industry, you have to be innovating and creating really fast. Does that make sense for you, Candy? And you're on mute, by the way, so I can't.
Yes, Greg, thank you. Love your work.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, let's go to the next one. LinkedIn. We put members first. We act as one LinkedIn. We dream big, get things done, and know how to have fun. So this one's a little bit different to the other two in a way. We put members first. So for LinkedIn, it's about being very client-centric. We act as one. So that means we work collaboratively. We are one voice. We are one LinkedIn. We're not renegades. We're not going off in our own little directions. We dream big. We action things, but we have fun. That sounds like a pretty cool culture to work in. I kind of like that. I like their approach. So what we're seeing so far is, in most cases, they're relatively short, but not as short as Red Bull. Red Bull are just, they've gone, here's your boundaries. We focus on people, culture, ideas. Go for gold. Stick to those three things. As long as you're in those three areas, you've got room to move. So that allows them to be very curious and innovative in that sense. However, it doesn't give much boundary around where they want to go. So it's an interesting one as well. So for Red Bull, if you look at their DNA around people, culture, ideas, you would need to wrap that in your vision, which is around something like spreading your wings and things like that. So that there's going to be really important. I want you to show here Speakers Institute Corporate. Here's three of ours. So nurturing rising talent, foster agile innovation, leading with compassion and humility. Okay, the first two here are really important. And the reason I like them, and to me, DNA, if we can keep it to 3 words, works well. Why? It has rhythm. It's a mantra. It's easily memorable. And that's the key. If you want DNA or you want behaviors or attitudes and things to actually stick, and for your team to actually hold each other accountable, they need to be able to remember them. Okay, so if we looked at ours again, I'd probably just go leading with compassion and remove humility, because leading with compassion is so much easier for our team to remember. And so my encouragement when you look at the DNA of a team or the DNA of a company is to think about how you can curate it in a way where it's easily memorable. It's got action to it. So it's got clarity. It helps shape the behaviors. And then the people inside the organization can then hold each other accountable really, really well. That's the beauty of looking at DNA versus values in a way, is that now it's like, this is how we do what we do. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions around that? Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so let's have a look at the final part here. And that is going to be around, how do we actually nurture, foster, and evolve our culture for sustainable success? So let's have a look at how we can actually live our DNA in a way. So living the DNA, the first one is to embrace it. And that means that as a leader and as people, we need to inspire them to think about embracing the attitudes, the behaviors, and even that identity through the DNA. So we need to be actually ensuring that we connect with it, because if we are not role modeling those behaviors or those attitudes or that way of doing things, then it's unlikely that the rest of the team will. So as leaders, that's super important that we embrace it. The second one here is we need to embody it. And when it comes to embodying it, as I mentioned, we need to be a role model, but we need to be really human-centric and so human-centered and heart-centric in our approach. So we need to make sure we live and breathe it. So we need to embrace them. We need to embody them. But the most important part then is to empower our team to actually make sure that they have the permission to actually hold each other accountable. They have permission to use those in a way that has a bit of flexibility, but they still want to make decisions based on what is our DNA. So those behaviors, your culture, your DNA needs to be designed in a way that when whatever project they're going to do, whichever meeting they're going to go into, whatever decision they're going to make, does it fit inside those? If it doesn't, they're probably going to make the wrong decision, or they're probably going to interact in a way that isn't aligned, and therefore it's going to warp the culture or maybe shift the culture. So we need to make sure that we have clarity of vision, that we can clearly define our DNA, and then we need to embrace, embody, and empower it. Okay, so culture starts from your DNA, but it is overwrapped with your vision. So there, hopefully that helps you, whether you're working inside a team or in an organization, to help think about how can we curate or evolve a culture. Reminder that you can't clean slate a culture. You cannot wipe it off the earth and start again. Any leader who thinks they can come into an organization and do that is going to struggle really fast, because a lot of people who have been doing here will always go back to, that's not how we do things around here. And so it's important to take people along the journey if you need to shape it. And my encouragement is to have everyone involved in regards to this process. So actually create a survey which asks questions to draw out what are the things that you feel we need to do well. If we are going to go for this vision, what are the things we need to put in place to achieve that? And how are we going to do that working together? So I hope you've enjoyed today's session around your culture is your DNA. We've come to the end of today's session. In a second, our team are going to pop into the chat some links that you can find out a little bit more about Speakers Institute Corporate. For those based in Sydney who are in learning development, people and culture, HR, wellbeing, talent space, or an executive, we do have the Sydney Showcase on the 8th of June, 2023. It is called Reimagining Workforce Culture. It is going to be happening at Pier 1 Sydney Harbour. We actually have a couple of team in the background there. You can see it on Chloe's screen. So they are hosting us at the beautiful Pier 1 Sydney Harbour underneath the bridge. And we've got a great event lined up that night, an experience where we're going to be showcasing a whole lot of different thought leadership around reimagining workforce culture. And we'll also have a great meal, some wining and dining, and some entertainment along the way. So it's going to be a great night. So thank you to Pier 1. Looking forward to being there with you in a few weeks' time. The next Thought Leadership series will be on, I think we're actually going to shift to a Thursday in June. So it's looking to be the 1st of June. So we'll get details out around that for you shortly. It'll be around a team, leading team performance, and we will share those with you shortly. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Hope you had a great session. Pop into the chat the one thing that you love the most, and look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.